Welcome back to Resolute Reveal, the podcast where we pull back the curtain on the people, perspectives, and insights in commercial real estate. Here with my co-host Martin Turner. And today's conversation I've been looking forward to for some time. We've got Rob Powell with us, principal out of our Albuquerque office here at Resolute RE, and someone who's built his career not just as a broker, but as an investor, a coach, and I think really a student and leader in our business at a deep level. He's worked on deals with national tenants, built a portfolio across different asset classes, and also spent some time coaching other brokers across the country on how to grow their business and think differently about what they're building. And I'm excited to be getting into that today, really taking a look at that intersection that he is at. And welcome to the show, Rob. Thanks for being with us.
Well, I am very honored that I've been invited to be on the show. Thank you for inviting me, and looking forward to some good conversation.
Well, we're very happy to have you. Where do you want to start? You do a lot of different things. Love to hear your insights, and I've been a student of you for some time and really interested to learn more and more. So is there something you want to start with today? Or
I guess I can just start with the background,
Mm-hmm.
and I can do that very quickly. I didn't start out in real estate. I was a consultant and software implementation, re-engineering, strategy in the healthcare area. And so I got to live all over the country. What I thought was going to be a really exciting career turned out to be a really brutal career because I traveled all the time. It was hard on my marriage, and then I got fired. Um, and the reality is the company I was working for blew up. And so, the whole company imploded, and I accepted a job in Boston. And at that time, I knew that if I continued traveling as much as consulting required, that my marriage would probably blow up. So I looked for something else to do, and thinking that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, I dove in. I got into investing in homes. Fast forward, I was really good at it, became a coach. The people that did a lot of books and so forth on that topic hired me as a coach. So I went all over the country. And I started out in residential investing and then traded up like Monopoly and traded in my houses for shopping centers. And was in 2008 hit, coaching came to a halt. Everyone ran away from real estate. I was getting ready to lose it all. I was heavily leveraged, and luckily I climbed out because they discovered oil and gas on 1,000 acres I had in Colorado. But I still was looking for deals, and I thought maybe brokerage would be a way to help me find more deals. I was absolutely wrong. That was the wrong way to go about it. But brokerage was something that I started to enjoy, and I started to increase my network and meet people, and I stayed in it. I was terrible at brokering, hence Massimo coaching. And fast forward, got into a little bit of developing, then started Resolute office here in New Mexico with the help of Martin. Martin recruited us, and here we are, and we're still investing. I coach for Massimo. I coach for CRE Investor Pro, and I do a little bit of brokerage, but I'm still heavily involved in the New Mexico market and continuing to buy, syndicate. We just finished our last syndication at the end of last year, and looking for more deals. And so I still broker, not as much, and my partners rely mostly on me to put deals together. And syndication is something we've been doing successfully. And our investors keep investing with us, which is great, and great returns so far.
This is a long span of time that you just went through.
Yeah,
Can you
5 years, 20 years, something like that?
So, I mean, coming from consulting, like what, touching on, getting into real estate, like was there a trigger or something you saw or just read a book or something that you said, man, I'd like to get into residential houses and flipping, or, what made you decide to go that route?
So good question, because my father-in-law is a commercial real estate broker in El Paso, and he's a CCIM, and I just kind of watched him from afar, never really wanting to be in brokerage, but he did well. He was a successful guy and a developer and investor. And so when I was in Barnes & Noble looking for something on entrepreneurship, at the time I had the opportunity to buy a Subway franchise, right? Wasn't sure if that was the way to go. Picked up a book on how to buy homes and use them as investments. and I can't remember Multiple Streams of Income by David Finkel and Peter Conti. Those are the guys that hired me to coach. But yeah, it just kind of like I knew real estate worked. I didn't know how it worked. And I picked up the book. It made sense. I read the book. I tried it. I was horrible at it. And then they had a boot camp, right? They all do, right? For $5,000 or $10,000 back then. I
Gotcha.
signed up, went to Colorado, took the camp, and I shot off from there. And, I was so desperate that I made it work.
Hmm.
Come to find out later on that, only 3 to 5% of people that even go to these conferences succeed. So the fact that I was that 3 to 5% is pretty amazing. But when you put, a fire under your butt, I was desperate to make something work.
Yeah.
And I was scared to death because I had cashed in my 401k trying to make it work. I didn't want to get another job. And so there was some definite
So from consulting, you just dove in full on at that point. Were you like still working two careers at that time, or was it just like, let's go?
I just wanted to make this work. It had to work.
Right.
And it was a struggle, and you always hear about the first 10 years of doing this. It's true. It takes a long time. I was a millionaire and I was broke. I had all this asset wealth and I was absolutely broke. And people don't understand that. People don't make sense of it, but it's true. It takes work, and then time and time and time again, you just keep doing it and you keep chipping away. And all of a sudden the passive income starts to move, and it's never really passive, but
Right.
it's not active income. And it starts to grow. It starts to grow. You pay off debt. You do things that increase your cash flow, raise rents and so forth. And it comes, but it's suffering. And, I've learned that you either suffer now or you suffer later. You suffer now by doing the work that's required to get you there, or you suffer later by regretting that you never did it.
Hmm.
Right. And luckily I chose the hard path. For some reason, I had a tunnel vision that there was no other path.
Hmm.
And getting a job was not a reality for me. That scared me more than anything.
So, Rob, you said something in your intro when you were talking about when you got into brokerage. You got in because you wanted to look for deals for yourself to invest in. And you kind of emphasized that that was a faulty logic, or that didn't turn out that way at all. That just struck me as an interesting comment. Why weren't you able to find deals as a broker?
It's interesting is let's flip that around a little bit. Like when I talk to brokers today, asking them, hey, if you find something, let me know. What is their first thing? Well, it's like, you're a broker, so I don't want to split fees with you. I have other people that will pay me full boat for me finding them deals. Why would I do that with you? And then I have to tell them, hey, I will give you full boat. I will not take a cut. And that's, most people, what they want to do is they want to find the deal. They want to double end it. Then they have an investor. Before I was a broker, that's who I was. When I became a broker, I was like, oh, okay, this guy's going to ask for a fee or so forth. And plus when you're a broker and you're a broker and you're looking for deals, you become the only person looking for deals, versus when you're an investor, you have several brokers looking for deals for you. So all of a sudden it narrows it down, and not intentionally, but that's just what happens. And you have to communicate that over and over again that, hey, I'm not going to take a fee. But it's tempting, right? When you syndicate, now you buy a property, you get a commission, you get an acquisition fee, you get asset management fees, and then when you sell it, you get the commission and the disposition fee. There's all these fees. It's very tempting to do that, and a lot of people do. Brokers don't want to bring opportunities to other brokers when they're not going to get full boat.
Yeah. So I know that you and your team there in New Mexico have invested in a lot of properties in the last recent years, and you've really ramped that up. What do you think the change is there that's made you be successful on that front? And how are you finding deals now? Like, how are you getting over that issue that you had back when you broke into brokerage?
Well, first of all, I'm a buyer, right? So my brokers know that they can bring deals to me, and I will do the analysis, the financial analysis on it. And I have a book of investors that have invested in me, and I can close the deal. But the thing is that I coach my group to think like investors, and then I bring them into the deals if they choose to. But they can bring the deal. They can bring the deal and get a commission. They can bring a deal and roll into the deal. Roll their commission in the deal. There's several ways to do that, but they know we're buyers, and they know that we close. Now, but a lot of these deals that we've done recently have been relationships over a long period of time where there's a discussion going on with the owner and, hey, have you ever, now that we're 100% occupied, this is a great time to sell. And they say, well, hey, I don't want to, I don't know what I would buy. And we have some solutions for that. And then, hey, by the way, Rob in our office is always looking to buy. I think he likes your property. Should we go down that road? And Daniel has put a deal together. Austin's put a deal together in that form where it's stuff that we've listed that has become now we own. Relationships where we've brought a tenant in tow and a builder, and maybe we don't have the cash, and now we have an investor that can do the deal, but we put the deal together and we get equity in the deal. It just depends. And not all of it is rosy. I mean, I'm dealing with an issue now where it's not working out like it should, but over 1 out of 10 deals is like that, but that's okay. It's the cost of doing business.
As a broker, I'm just thinking from my point of view. I mean, I think a lot of people in our business, they think about the future and long term. Brokerage is not an easy business. You're somewhat of a victim to the market, and, we're commission based. And I think a lot of us have that thought of, investing in properties in the future. I mean, a lot of us are experts in the field, and it kind of makes sense to go that route. How do they go about making that transition? Obviously, there's the need for the capital to get into that. Is it about just the skill or knowledge that you could contribute? Like, how does that something like that get structured for brokers?
There's a lot to that question, and
Mhm.
so please be prepared to ask me the question again, because I'm tempted to go on a rabbit trail here. The first thing is that I don't think that brokers know what their future is like. They
Mm.
don't see that. It's like now, let's eat what we hunt, what we kill, and it's the now. And most people, it's not brokers, but most people don't ask the question, what is it that I really, really want? And it's not a question that can be answered in 30 minutes or 3 months, but it does evolve over time. And I asked my wife, when we're on a road trip, I said, what is it that we really want? Right? Because if you ask a 25-year-old broker, what does he want? He goes, I want the watch, I want the car, I want the house. It's very driven by how they look. But when you get past the materialistic portions, what does you really want? 9 times out of 10, it's freedom. The freedom to choose what we want to do and that day, wake up and do that day. And what is going to give you that freedom? And when you start looking at that, what does that freedom look like? Then you start working backwards. What is it that I need to do to get to where I want to go?
Mhm.
And brokerage could be a part of it. Investing in stocks, investing in as an LP, a limited partner in deals, maybe being a GP in deals. But most people do not know what they want. And so it becomes like every shiny object, right? You start selling Amway, you start real estate, then you start selling Amway, then you start selling, there's this great book called Keys to the Kingdom by, I think his name is Cunningham. And he talks about how if you don't know where you're going, you're going to get easily distracted. And you start doing side businesses or doing things and you're not focused. And as brokers or what have you, if you know where you're going, then you know what that straight line looks like. And you know what you need to be doing. And in that is the reward. So first of all, I don't think the statement is correct that, brokers want to, they just don't. They don't think about it enough.
Hmm.
When really the discipline should be thinking about it all the time, right? What gives you the margin so you can pay, you don't have, your kids want to go to college and money's is not an issue. If you need to take care of your parents at a certain time, and, all of us go through these cycles in our lives, what is the thing that limits us? It's margin. Hey, I got to work. I can't do that, right?
Mm.
When my, it was a great wake up call when my son was ill and I was in Chicago and I lived there from September through the end of December. I wasn't worried about money. right? I had the margin to just focus on what was dealing. If you have an issue with your marriage and money's a problem, guess what? Your issue, your marriage is if your troubled marriage becomes bigger, it becomes a bigger issue because you don't have the margin to deal with it and get the counseling and get the therapy that you all need. Margin should always be the goal, but everyone's margin definition is different. I see it as the ability to pivot when I need to without worrying about how I'm going to take care of myself and my family or the company, right? So I don't remember the rest of the question, but I wanted to kind of tell you that
No,
piece.
this is great. I mean, what I'm getting a lot from you, I've heard you speak in the past too, and saw some other podcasts, but for a lot of people, if you ask that question or syndicators, they're going to tell you step by step what to do. But what I'm getting from you a lot is more about the philosophy. Have you always thought like that? I mean, is that how you approach all your investments and, the things that you're going after in life? I'm getting more of this personal life and development thing rather than the business itself, which is a great point. I think more people should be thinking this way because it's much bigger than the job, right?
So no, I have not always thought that way.
Mhm.
And I think it comes from coaching a lot of people. And I've coached some really, really, really successful people. And that's not to brag, but is the people that I coach, the ones that are really successful, I start to learn how they think about life.
Mm.
And as a Massimo coach, as a CRE investor coach, it's rarely about how to be a great broker. It's about how to build a foundation in your life in order so you can be a great broker. You can be a great husband. You can be a great father, because all those pieces that make you great feed into everything that you do. And if you fail in one area, usually you see those failures in other areas, and it's usually due to the same symptoms. But when you think about where you want to go and you understand what you need to do, you're less likely to get distracted by things that take you away from that. And in that, then you can start to study, you can start to learn, right? Like with investing, and you learn that, there's a huge gambit of, there's a huge space between how to do investing, and it all works. It's just, if you start to learn it, you understand all the avenues of, you know, just buying something and going getting a loan. And then, hey, maybe I'm going to buy something bigger. I'm going to bring some partners. And then you start going down the syndication route, which is very complex. And then you say, hey, you know what? I don't have a lot of money. So maybe I can, maybe I'll just LP, be a limited partner in deals. But what do I need to do to be a GP? Well, if I don't have the network, maybe I can be a co-GP and not have to bring a whole lot of equity. And there's so many ways to dice this up. But what's the one thing that gets in the way is that people don't know where they're going. So they don't want to spend the time. And then what happened? And the reason they don't want to spend the time is because there's a lot of fear.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fear in investing. And you think about brokerage, and that we know this business. We put spreadsheets in our sleep about how to analyze a deal, but we don't own anything. And it's because of fear. We just think, oh, I don't have the time to make the money. The more you learn, the less fear you have. And the more you see people doing it, if you're around people that are doing it a lot, which is a huge plus being a coach in CRE Investor Pro, the people that I coach, they're doing 20, 30, $40 million deals. And you're watching them go through this and go through the process. And you start to eliminate the fear because you're seeing people do it and they do it well. And that's a leap of faith we all have to take and surround ourselves with people that do that in order to do it ourselves. And if you know where you're going and you know what the steps are and you know who the people are doing it that can help you get there, there's a very clear roadmap. But it takes a lot to get someone distracted from, hey, man, I sure would look good in that Porsche, right? Hey,
Yeah.
I really would look, there's this whole thing that just drags people away. Then they get loaded in debt. And then what do they have when it comes to an opportunity to be an LP in a deal and you need 25,000? Well, guess what? I need my commission so I can support my life and support the debt that I need to pay. All of a sudden your margin's gone and you can't do it because you can't afford it, and nothing changes in your life. Sacrifice is required at the beginning in order so you don't deal with regret at the end.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, I go off on these tangents, but they're
No, I
so
love it,
important.
man.
They're so true.
It's
You
just
know,
so much to unpack. It's like, yeah, it's great.
So, Rob, one of the things we've mostly been talking about your investing so far and your investing philosophy, but you also have some unique perspective on the brokerage business and how to build a team and everything like that. And um, I know that when you came on to join us, what was that, 2016, 2017? I can't remember. But you brought Daniel and Austin with you from the prior spot that you were at. And I remember you came in and you told me, you said, okay, it's the three of us, and the three of us split our deals right down the middle. No matter who does the deal, we split all of our commissions right down the middle. And I'd seen team setups and everything, but I had never seen one quite that egalitarian where, each member of the team was getting a third of the deal, no matter who did the deal and everything. And I remember us talking about that, and I watched it in action, and it worked. It happened to work really well in your scenario and with that team of people. So I just wanted to ask you a little bit about that and why you think that works. Have you seen it work with other groups? Do you have other teams within your office now that you're a larger office? I'm just curious about that.
yeah, and I wish there was a simple answer because yeah, it's worked, but it hasn't had its issues. I think, you work through it and everyone has, when we first put this whole this partnership together, I was carrying it, right? I was doing the deals and Austin and Daniel were carrying it. They were still young brokers, but I had this sense that I just needed them to help build this company here in Albuquerque. And then guess what? It started to flip flop. It was less me, and then one year was more Austin. Then next year was all Daniel, and right now I think it's both Austin and Daniel, and I'm doing very little brokerage, but they're relying on me on the investing side, right? And so is does it why does it work? I think we need each other because we bring different strengths to the partnership. I don't think it's smart to think that works for a lot of people. I don't know. I kind of think we lucked out. And I wish I could say, Martin, this is how this works and this is the formula that you follow. But it does work out because it goes back to the philosophy that I know where I'm going. And you know what? I'm not going to be brokering forever. And I'm at an age where I need to start thinking about a succession plan. And so we are going down that road of where I'm going to get bought out, right? But you can't do that unless you have people that are willing to buy you out. And because of how we built this, now I'm in a position where I can get bought out. And we have a good broker that might be wanting to buy some of that, right? And so we're working on through all of that. And it's part of the plan. And we all have to think about that. Where are we going? What is it that we want? Because most brokers, they broker. And what's at the end? Well, I stopped brokering and I don't think about my brokerage as a business that I can sell. I can't take my brokerage and encapsulate it in people, platform, process, all built in, and then have a book of business and sell to someone. Brokers don't think that way. But if they think about where they're going and what they want, they start thinking about, well, I need to be able to sell my business. And not everyone can do that. But if you think about encapsulating your business and putting the people, platform, and process together, you have something very valuable. It's something someone may want. And now you're in that position. But it also focusing on the end game of encapsulating your business. Now, what do you have? Freedom, because now it's not dependent on you. And now you have something that is very valuable and you can continue for the rest of your life and you not be a part of it, right? Because now you have people that work it, you have processes, you have a platform where all the processes function through. That's exciting. But brokers, and I mean, most people just don't think about it that way. And I went on a whole different rabbit trail here, Martin, from your conversation, but the partnership has worked well. And now we see a place where I'm going to roll off and they take over. And we all were focused on that. Like, okay, what does this look like? So some partnerships just come together just so that, they can hedge their bets and lower the risk, right? So if someone's doing well and the other one's not, hey, we're covering each other. It doesn't always work out that way. But if you have an end goal and you see how this could work and you're building something that you own, it starts to make a lot of sense. But yeah, believe me, I've almost lost Austin and Daniel along the way. It has been hard to hold together, but the vision of what that is really important, so that everyone says, okay, I see where we're going. I see where we're going. That's hard.
Very unique, man. Yeah, we're unpacking a lot of stuff here.
We could be here all freaking
I
day,
love it.
right?
I love it. Yeah, no, it's a lot. I mean, myself, us as brokers too. I mean, like, I'm thinking about like that future a lot. I'm not sure of next steps. I mean, we touched a little bit about fear, doing that something new. I think there's also that, the lifestyle traps that a lot of us get stuck in. And if we get into further debt with some of that, it's even worse. And then, the brokerage, again, I kind of mentioned like we're victims of our market or our activity. I mean, that pipeline, it's not guaranteed, and we're kind of stuck on that commission wheel, that hamster wheel that we have. And we're trying to figure out and see clearly beyond that, I think is really tough. I mean, looking at your background, I feel like you've already were thinking way ahead even before you got into brokerage. Like commission checks weren't a focus for you, if I'm correct. And then, when you got into brokerage, you kind of looked at it through a different lens rather than someone like a typical salesperson would be.
Yeah, it was, it was really, there was a lot of ego. And what I mean by that is when I was at my first brokerage, I was the worst broker there. I mean, the worst. And it was embarrassing, right? But here's the thing is, if you remember where I was when I started my investing business, I was so desperate for something to work
Mm.
that I did, I woke up early, I went home late, I was gone all the time, I was, cleaning these houses that I bought, and I was doing whatever I could to survive. Then I had some passive income, and here I am, a broker. I mean, that's like probably the worst thing a broker can have is passive income, because being a broker is hard. And I had income, so I wasn't stressed out about, if I did it or not. But then, I'm showing up to these broker meetings and wow, Rob Powell sucks. He really does. And no one had ever said that. But the fact of the matter is I knew that. And then Rod Santo Massimo gives this, comes in, he's starting his business. He visits our office. He talks about, your pipeline is your bloodline. And I said, okay, you know what? There's a game plan, and I'm kind of embarrassed. And here's a game plan, and it's something I could do. And if I just dedicate a few hours a day and do this, now I'm not going to tell you all of a sudden I was an amazing broker. I don't think I've ever got to a point where I was a great broker. I'm kind of like that coach that never played football and coach a great team, right? Mike Leach, Texas Tech football coach, never played a down of football in his life, but he was a master of the air raid, right? I kind of felt that way. I did an okay job, and it put me into some situations where I did some good brokerage years, but I knew how to do it. And I also knew that strategy worked for whatever, like, personally and professionally. And brokerage was kind of like an opening to a lot of opportunity with regards to money, right? Because that's where a lot of money hangs out. The people that we deal with as brokers in selling and buying and so forth. And a lot of brokers just see brokerage as the transaction. The philosophy is the network, is the relationships, is the communication with people that are doing amazing things, and they allow you to walk along with them to help them. That's crazy. We just don't, as brokers, we don't see it that way. We
Yeah.
see it as completely transactional, and I think that's a sin.
So you do a lot of coaching as well, both inside your office with a number of brokers that you guys have there, but then also through Massimo, you're a coach with them. You see a lot of top performing brokers and what they're doing, and I'm sure you've coached some that are not top performing too. Um, what what do you see as the big differentiators between those elite performers, the guys that are putting up those numbers that that are just top 1% numbers, and, you know, the broker that consistently falls short.
It's isolating the cornerstone of the business is the number one thing that differentiates a great performer and an average broker. And what I mean by that is everything that we do has a cornerstone. I thought it was done really well in a book called Atomic Habits that you guys have probably read. But it was like there's this part that outweighs everything. It's Pareto's principle, 80-20, where 80% of your outcome comes from 20% of you do. And, as brokers, what is it that fills our pipeline, right? It is being in front of the client, prospecting potential clients. That is it. If a broker, if all they did was they walk into the office, they picked up their phone and they started calling prospects and did nothing else, they would be a very successful broker, right? Now you have pipeline work and so forth. But if you realize that no one needs help or accountability or coaching to do pipeline work, no one has ever called me, "Hey, Rob, I have so much business that I need you to help me do my business." No, that's not the case. It's like, "Hey, Rob, I need you to help me to give me a game plan. So in order to drum up business," that's the piece. But what happens is a broker comes in and what do? They go to their email, they go to their voicemail. Maybe they go and, they clean their desk, or they'll do anything but being in front of the potential client, the prospect, a priority. And so the winners in this are the ones that just focus on that because they start to get better. I use the gym analogy as like, if you go to the gym and you don't know what to do, you just keep going because eventually you'll see people doing things that work and you'll start to understand it and learn it. The people that don't do that are called gearheads. I call them gearheads because they have everything. They have the real nice gym bag, they have the gym shoes, they have the belt, they have the gloves, they have the wardrobe, right? And they might even have the membership. And then they might go for a little bit, but then it all goes away, right? When all you need to do is show up and then focus on that one thing, because then you will get better. What happens is brokers will do it. They say this is hard. They'll go do something else. Hopefully someone will call on a sign. Hopefully some attraction will happen, but they do everything else and that's mostly what most brokers do. But if they dedicated 1 to 2 hours of just focusing on who they're supposed to be calling and calling them and putting a cadence in place and having a system and understanding the value they bring and understanding that the market data is their value, because, if you know something that no one else does, that's the value that you want to communicate. And you just focus on that over and over and over. It's painstaking. It sucks. That will be the most successful broker, period. Then you could add the Salesforce or the CRM. Then you could add all this other gear. But that is the habit. And if you don't have the habit, all that other stuff won't matter. But if you have the habit and then you're working on presence and you're doing networking, now it's exponential. But if you just get rid of that and you just focus on the habit, then you get better. That's all you need. But all the other things make it exponential. Now you can have auto dialers, you can have all kinds of technology. And I'd love to talk about AI if we ever get a chance to here. But that one piece is 2 hours. And I can tell you that it's very hard for brokers to do that for 2 hours. And it's about 2 hours of outbound, right? It's and putting it in cadence. So you call, you understand who your client is, your prospect is, and you call, you leave a message. And then you put it in your CRM of what you've done. And then you send them an email, put voicemail in the subject line, say, "Hey, I just left you a voicemail. Would love to connect. I'd love to tell you about some property that's sold that impacts the value of your property at 13 Maple Drive." And then you forget about it, right? Now you have your CRM working and it sends you a reminder 2 weeks to call again. And now what are you doing? You're building your prospecting list, because now it's in the hands of a CRM. And you just do that, and you do that for 2 hours. Now you get emails of who to call. Now you don't have to worry about who am I going to call, because now I have this system telling me who to call. Just that right there will make you a winner. Period.
It's interesting. So I'm prospecting for the first time in many years for sales accounts. And, I've been out of the prospecting game in a primarily corporate role for many years. I've been doing brokerage work as it comes to me, but, fewer and further between. And I've been working with Ray and we, formed a team and started prospecting. And a very interesting thing I've noticed is, the other day I got a call. It was like a freebie. Somebody called me up out of the blue, asked me to list something for them. And I just noticed how all the gears in me just started turning like, okay, I need to do this, I need to do that. And I was like all over this lead, right? And I realized as I was doing that, I was like, holy crap, man, like my philosophy, just because I've been engaged in the prospecting part of this, and you realize, like, sure, you get deals out of that prospecting, but it also does something to your psyche where it's like, I've been working for these leads, right? A lead comes in, you treat that lead like it's gold. Whereas in recent years, maybe that lead comes in and I didn't treat it as gold because it was just a free lead coming into the office, and it's like, and there it is. And, I didn't understand the value of that lead. Prospecting does something for you that just gets you going in a different direction. And it makes you appreciate business that much more. Like,
Mm.
I'm getting deals through prospecting, but I'm getting more deals converted that are just leads coming in because I'm so locked in and realizing the value. I'm responding faster. I'm following up quicker. It's changed my psyche towards deals in general, just getting re-engaged in the prospecting side of it.
That's great to hear, Martin. That's
Trying to
awesome.
make you proud, Ray.
I mean, yeah, I mean, the prospecting, like my favorite part of my day, but the most hated part of the day at the same time. Yet my challenge is that I don't get enough time to do it. It feels like I feel like I'm getting pulled in different directions, just part of because of the new role that I have. But yeah, it's a struggle to like sit down and get it done. But I know it's the most important part of my day. I know it works because that's like kind of where I got to from doing it. For the people that you coach on the brokerage side, I mean, what's the commonality or like the reason that they come to you? There must be a point for them to like make that decision because it's an investment, right? I mean, it costs money
Yeah,
for them to
it's
do that.
crazy expensive for
Yes.
sure.
Like what do you find that's like driving them to come to that point?
So there's it's all over the spectrum. You
Hmm.
have some brokers that think we have the magic bullet,
Hmm.
and they pay their money and they'll say, okay, give it to me,
Yeah.
and realize it requires a lot of work. We just have the game plan of what works because we've talked to all these thousands of brokers and the most successful ones do this, right?
Mm.
That always fails. That usually dies within the first 6 months. Like, okay, forget it. And then you have on the other side these successful people that want to, build their business, bring brokers on, and have a structure of for them how to do things, right? And then they say, hey, look, I'd like to get out. I want to do less. And so I need you to help me encapsulate my business so that it goes and it keeps running without me having to be there, right? And you guys know, you've heard the term golden handcuffs, right? I had a friend that just sold his business for multi-million dollars, but he has to be there for 10 more years, right? Because it doesn't operate without him, right? And so all of a sudden, now he has all this money, but guess what? He can't go anywhere. He can't do what he wants because he's an employee. And that's kind of how brokerage kind of works, right? Is this how can I encapsulate it? And so that I'm not it's continuing to do what it needs to do, and I have team members and so forth, but I'm not there. So you have those two spectrums in the middle. And the reason that most people that come and then stay is they build a plan, they build a team operating agreement for their company, for their brokerage teams, and then they implement Massimo concepts, prospecting, presence. I can go on and on. And when they put that together, then they start to encapsulate it, right? Okay, what's the platform we're going to use? What are the processes that support the platform? Who are the people? Because in brokerage, there's two sides, three silos each. On brokerage, it's what fills the pipeline: prospecting, presence, value.
Mm.
You have to understand your value, right? That builds your brokerage side. But as a brokerage, and you're talking about, Ray, about what you do, like you have two hats, right? Now you have the business side. You have people, platform, processes. This is where the broker lives, right? In order to have successful business, he has to bring in commission. In order to manage that business, he has to have the processes, the platform, the people to do that. That's where the encapsulation work happens. But on the brokerage side, what would it be like if everyone showed up at 8 a.m. and prospected till 10 o'clock and it was all outbound?
That's my dream.
Right?
Yeah.
All outbound, right? All outbound, right? And then it's from, let's say 8 to 10. At 10 o'clock, you have 15 minutes and then you do a podcast from 10:15 to 12:15. And then at 12:15, you did all pipeline work, right? Because pipeline work gets done, whether it gets done between 9 and 5 or 9 or 8 in the morning till 1 at night. Pipeline work gets done.
Mm.
It's the stuff that gives you the pipeline work that we hate, right?
Yeah.
But you could say, hey, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to work on the business. I'm not going to do a podcast until I do these 2 hours of prospecting every day. Then I get to reward myself. Guess what? That is what the best do. They reward themselves with everything else.
Mm.
Right? It's why homeschooling works, right? If you go to a public school or private school, it's from 8 a.m. till 3. If you get homeschooled, it's from 8 till 10, right? And then you have the rest of the day. That's how you should treat prospecting, because if you do that, you will have the rest of the day. And all of a sudden you're building margin. And then I remember this great quote that I learned at being part of an investment group says, the reason I do what I do is because my weekdays become my weekends and my weekends become holidays. Think about that. What do you have to do in order to do that, right? And prospecting absolutely opens up your day. If you get that done, what else is there? You could expand it to 3 hours, right? Because the trap that most brokers get in is they'll start prospecting because someone told them to, and then they start making some money. And then when they start making some money, they stop prospecting. Then they make no money. Then they start prospecting again. So you have people that make $200,000 one year, nothing the second year, $200,000 the third year, right?
Been there, done that.
Right?
Yeah.
But if you look at it as part of the cornerstone, that if I just do this 2 hours every day, I am going to be fine.
Yeah.
And then everything else I do makes it exponential. Because if you're a great networker and not a prospector, if you're great at LinkedIn and you're not a prospector, if you're great at all these other things, but you're not a prospector, you won't see your margin increase. It'll stay pretty stale.
Yeah. Prospecting being the core and getting on the phone and making those calls. So where do you put we just mentioned LinkedIn and social media and stuff. Like, what about like networking events, social media? Like, how does that all these other things kind of play into that prospecting piece? Does it help? Is it kind of waste of time? Is it necessary? Like, how are brokers looking at, or the coaches or brokers looking at that today, you think?
Okay, I think it is necessary as long as you are working on your cornerstone. Because you can put a lot of that on auto drive. AI is a wonderful thing that's taking over and allowing us to do stuff like that. So if you prospect, all the other stuff that you do will make it exponential. It will drive you to higher fees, right? So, like, for instance, if you make it a point, all right, so you say, okay, I'm prospecting every day, 2 hours. And then I'm going to meet with what we call food drink opportunities, FDOs, right? These are people that influence the circle, right? So commercial real estate brokers, title companies, property managers, contractors, you just have coffee with them. And now what you're doing is working on your referral business, right? If you do that twice a week, right? And you see how I'm building this, right? So 2 hours prospecting, and we know our value, we know who to call, and we know why we're calling, and we do this every day. We use our CRM, and now that's done. Now I'm going to meet with people that influence the people that I want to work with, right? Commercial real estate attorneys. So I have a coffee, architects, coffee. So twice a week. And then you go to these network events, then you go to ICSC, and I hate these things. If you want to make me really sad, tell me I have to go to a NAIOP or a CCIM or anything. It bothers me, but I know I have to do it. Okay, so it's part of the suffering, right? I just do it, and so yes, but if you're not prospecting, that doesn't matter. If you want to make ICSC valuable, you prospect, right?
Yeah.
And so, like when we talk about ICSC, what do brokers do? Okay, they go and then they walk around, they collect squishy toys, and then maybe they'll bump into somebody. But the smart ones, and this is something that Resolute does great, and it's something that was always at the early, is start making appointments, start calling, making appointments. When you make appointments and you feel, it doesn't matter who you're meeting with, when you're filling up that gap, all of a sudden now you can drop in a principle of like, hey, I'm going to drop someone else because I can meet with someone better, right? And then you start, but if you have a full schedule, ICSC is the best thing in the world. Right. And but if you're prospecting, ICSC becomes exponential.
Yeah.
Right. The networking events become exponential. So yes, it's important. And LinkedIn is important. All those other things are important. I got the privilege of hanging out with Bob Knackel in New York not too long ago. Me, Austin, Daniel went to go see him. Sat in his office and we just talk about him. And he's been on that show that's on Netflix, right? I can't remember. It's something about New York real estate. And he goes, these people know that if they want to be the guy that they call when it comes to Manhattan real estate. And he does one thing and one thing only, and he wants to be that guy. And everything is directed towards that. He prospects like crazy, and everything else supports that. So that's an exponential factor for what he does.
Right on. We touched a little bit on AI. It's kind of enveloping and saturating our whole world. Having it play into, I'm a huge advocate. I use it all the time. It's like helped me like crazy just to do like a ton of different things. Where do you see it fitting in? And, how do you use it in your business? And what do you think it's going to bring into the horizon? We see a lot of jobs being replaced or the talk of it, do you think it's going to affect our industry as well?
First of all, absolutely. Second of all, it's not about how does AI fit in, it's how do we fit into AI? Because it's so big. I'm going to tell you that I am surprised how fast it's moving. And everyone's told me that it's moving fast. And I say, yeah. Well, I have a client, a person I coach, and he used Salesforce for years. And Salesforce dropped an API that was helping him do something that was critical to his business. That's what you call them, right, Martin? Those APIs, those things that
connections between the platform and some other, yes.
And Salesforce said, we're not supporting this anymore. And he was freaking out, like, okay, what am I going to use now? He went to Claude and he said, in a month, I replaced Salesforce. And now he's working on business, and he's created this thing that is now he's competing for these accounts that he was never able to compete for based on what he's created.
Wow.
Now think about it. That's kind of like weird, but I'm seeing it over and over and over again. In where I started in consulting, it was like the dumbest thing for anyone to do something from the ground up. And there was horror stories. I spoke to brokers that have spent $200,000 to $300,000 on a ground up system that catered to their business. Well, that is out the window. You're going to see more and more brokerages doing this just by asking Claude questions. How do I do this? And then implementing invoicing, implementing everything. And it's a fraction of the cost. And is an interesting is like, okay, you get a developer and then let's just use Salesforce, for example. Then you say, hey, developer, I want you to do this, 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 and this. And then what does the developer do? Maybe 4 or 5 days later, it comes back, hey, this is what I came up with. Says, well, that's not close. I want you to do this. And you go back and forth and back and forth. AI, it's immediate. Hey, I need you to do this. Comes, not immediate. Sometimes it spends some time, but it comes back. And then you go back and forth. And now you've removed the delay a lot at a fraction of the cost. And people are doing it everywhere. And so now software, software is not going to be the thing. It's the data. Who's going to build the moat around the data? And it's data that you know only, right? Everyone's going to know CoStar. Everyone's going to know everything on Crexy. What is it that you know? What is it the brokers inside your office know about your market that no one else knows? And now you have your value. That's the value.
Yeah.
It's the data that you know. It won't matter the software you use because anyone can develop that software with any AI. And now that, that AI agent is your developer, which is
Yeah.
crazy. It's unreal. And that's just technology side, right? On the investing side, I upload my syndication docs and then I ask it to help me figure out the distribution as an asset manager. And it's doing all this. And it says, hey, by the way, do you want me to do this for you? Heck yeah, let's do that, right? Yeah, you're going to see a lot of elimination. I don't think it's going to replace brokers, but I think brokers are no longer are going to, you're going to have to understand how to use AI in order to help your clients.
Yeah.
And it's going to change. I mean, it's changing everything, but it's
Sure.
faster than you think. And you watch CoStar's stock right now, right? I don't know where it started, but it is like boom, right? Because people are getting that information from other sources and they're creating their own AI agents to gather that information and dump it in their email or dump it on their desktop, and they have it in the morning.
Mm.
And who's getting all the the big companies? Who are they firing or laying off? The research department. Right. That information's coming and it's getting gathered and it's totally usable in minutes. So yes, we should all be scared. Yes, it can change our business. It is a huge benefit, and we must figure out how we fit into it.
Yeah.
Because it's not about it fitting into us.
Yeah.
That's not the key. And I'll tell you one more thing is, like, before this happened, it was always this technology. We would have to change our processes in order to fit the technology. AI is allowing where our business processes are so unique and they provide value, and now we can customize technology so that it mimics our processes. It's not the other way around anymore.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Can we talk about syndication?
Yeah, of course.
For me, it's like a big veil. I wouldn't even know where to start with that. Like, can you talk about your first syndication deal and how that's evolved and where you are today with that?
So syndication. So first of all, man, I have, as much as I think I know, I realize how much I don't know. And so it's a great question, because I started in the syndication business long before 2008. And when I got in trouble, and I almost lost everything in around, it was 2008, 2009. And I had a bank coming after me, right? And luckily we found oil and gas on the land. The whole, all my prayers, all of a sudden it worked out fine. But I lost years of my life. So I said I wasn't going to syndicate anymore, right? And I was just going to buy deals on my own and so forth. And then what happened was, these deals that I was buying, I would bring in partners, and I was under the impression that you let's just say that I did not understand the SEC regulations that govern syndications. I'll leave it at that. And through that, when I talk about my first syndication versus where I am now, I'm in a totally different place. And I've learned a whole lot in that process. And it's basically because I'm actively doing that, and working with CRE investor coach Brad Arns, who's like, he really knows what he's talking about, is getting with people to peel back the veil and show you, like, hey, it is complicated, but only the first time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like learning calculus. Well, calculus is hard no matter what, but you know what I'm saying is, it's an unveiling. And so first of all is, when you have a property, you understand when you analyze a property and what the return is. Once you have somebody say, yeah, this is a great return. Okay. Now, as an investor, I did a lot of deals pari passu, right? 50-50, right? I put the deal together. Everyone makes money. As a syndicator, what happens is you have an LP and a GP, a limited partner and a general partner. And there are ways where a general partner can put deals together, give a great return to the limited partners, but then make fees along the way to to support the project and to keep the project going and do the asset management and all that kind of stuff. And learning that piece has been huge. And it's amazing how many people just put an LLC together, put a bunch of people into the LLC as partners, and they go buy a deal. Not only is that risky, but it's also does not follow the rules with the SEC guidelines.
Interesting.
So if you wanted to buy an office building, Ray says, "Hey, I got this office building. It's $500,000. Let's all go $100,000 each." Right. And we put this LLC, Ray Kang LLC, and we're all partners in that. And you do all the work and you're just using their money. You're doing all the work. Maybe you have some of your money in there and you manage it and you pay distributions and no one's doing any work. Well, guess what? That's a security. Now, if someone is not happy with you and says, you know what, Ray Kang is not doing it right, you could be committing securities fraud.
Interesting.
That's simple. Now,
Wow.
there's a lot, is it big enough for the Fed to get involved? Probably not. Is it big enough for the state to get involved? If someone chirps loud enough and has a friend, maybe. But you do need to, syndication, as scary as it sounds and as complicated it is not a, if you want to get investing and you want to raise money to do that, it's a must. It's not a, even if you do a friends and family and you bring your dad's money in and your Aunt Susie's money in, it's still a must. You have to understand these regulations because it's really easy to break.
Where do you get that education? Is that where you do broker coaching. Is CRE Investor Pro touching on that side of the business?
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
Right. And it covers all kinds of things, right? Like when and when I say about you coach an investor, it's like, hey, I have this property, I have this tenant in tow. How do I put this together? That's where you find people who've done it and can help you. And I've always said, you don't partner with someone that you can pay for, right? You see all these young brokers or young investors, and they offer their CPA a cut or their lawyer a cut or whatever in exchange for services, right? There's so much involved in what I'm talking about and so much to think about that if you go in this as a newbie and you're not looking for guidance, there's so many pitfalls. But when you have guidance, and I'm not talking, you don't have to go to a program like CRE Investor Coach. You could go to someone that's done it before and ask them to help you or go work for them or do whatever. That just having that is a big deal because you could lose your ass.
Yeah, not good. Interesting. A lot of brokers, they talk about rolling in their commissions into deals, the next deal or something like that. Do you think that's a good way to get started, or is that something obviously it depends on the deal and the person, but is that you see a typical way for brokers to get started in investing as well? Or
I do. And I think, first of all, this was a great question I had yesterday. I was talking to a member that I coach, and his son is a broker now, a very successful broker. And he was, and his son wanted to get investing, and he was saying, he's doing so well at brokerage. I would hate for him to get distracted and start focusing on this when he really needs to focus on brokerage. And the answer is you work your ass off. You know where you're going. You work your ass off to build that margin. You don't get trapped in your lifestyle. And now you have this money, right? And so now you have 6 months of emergency or whatever, but now you have money to where you can invest. And so now you have an opportunity to be an LP in a deal. So you put 20, I think the minimum for a syndication is 25,000. So many lessons in that too, by the way. 25,000.
This is another podcast, Rob. We're going to have to dig into all this stuff at some point. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's good. And I can come back to that, but so you roll in your 25, maybe it's your commission, or you just put 25 because you have the margin, you have the opportunity. And then you start making some money and then you have another 25 and you go in another deal. There's a deal that Martin, some investors said, hey, do you have any guys that would be interested in investing in this deal? I got on a Zoom call. I like the guys, and I have a guiding principle. I say, hey, look, I will do the initial on any deal that I think is good, and if and I'm willing to lose the money. But if it does well, I will be the guy that invests again. If it doesn't do well, you will never hear from me again. But I will not bitch and moan at any time or any place. You will not hear from me. If I make money, great. I'll do another deal with you. If I lose money, I will never do a deal with you. But you won't hear from me, right? And that's my guiding principle, and Martin says these are great guys. And so I did the deal, and, it's still being developed and so forth. But you have to get to a point where your margin, where do you have that kind of margin where you have buffer to do that? And if you
Right.
roll your money in a deal and you don't need that money, awesome. If you roll money into a deal and you need that money, that's a bad place to be. And
Right on.
that means you don't have the margin. And in most brokers don't have the margin because their lifestyle has trapped. But yes, if you have the opportunity to invest with your client and you believe in the project and you do analysis, and again, learn how to analyze. You can go into Claude or chat, and that'll help you immensely on analyzing a deal. And then you feel good. Yes, do it and be an LP. And like I was telling the example I was telling you with this guy's son, is that focus on brokering, day job, do that and build the margin.
Mm.
And then as an LP, you start learning the business. Then and then you think about, hey, I might be the GP, right? And putting that together, getting educated. It's all worth it.
Yeah, man, I'm getting a lot out of this. I don't want to keep you all day either, but I think we're gonna have to have another show, Rob. Maybe two or three more to kind of unpack everything. I'm learning a lot, and I'm kind of at a point in my career too where it's like, man, I got to think about the bigger picture of things. I think I've got pretty good trajectory on where I am and where I got to, but I also want to get to that next level in brokerage business. But on top of that, think about that margin, and then also the bigger scheme of things of where you seem to be at. What would be a next step for a guy like me, you think? What would be your advice?
You think about this. The question is, if I had X, I could do Y, right? So you're married, right, Ray?
Mm-hmm.
You have children?
No.
Okay. So the X is being able to support the lifestyle you have. And if it's grand, how can you make it minimal, right?
Mm.
So that you can start, and I'm not saying build a whole thing of cash, but have the margin to where, you know what, if I don't want to work for a year, I can't, right? I mean, you have to start thinking in that sense, because and then look for opportunities. When you talk to clients that are buying shopping centers or industrial, have the conversation. Hey, I'd love to help you as a broker, but I'd also love to, invest in the deals, be an investor in your deal, or maybe roll in my commission. Start talking, having that conversation on a consistent basis. That will open up the LP. There's plenty of LP opportunities, by the way. And you have to understand how to analyze a deal in order to not risk your money at a minimum. But ask for those opportunities. And that's where I would start and look for them but don't ignore those 2 hours of prospecting.
Right
Because
on.
really what you're doing is you're building relationships with people that are doing what you want to invest in, and possibly doing what you want to do as a GP. Like, would I continue to invest all the time? I just want to, I have a grandkid now. I want to hang out with my wife more. I know that I have this little sticky note that telling me that, I have, 23 years left. Right? When you think about where you're going,
Yeah. Yeah.
I have 23 years left to do it.
Mm.
I might be alive. I might not, I might die today, but I could live as long as 80. Right. And so I have 23 years left, 24 years left, right? 24 years left. And so what is that? What do I need to do? Right. And so am I going to wait? Am I going to wait another 5 years and start living the life? Or can I do
Right.
that now? What does that look like?
Right.
Can I broker on my own terms?
Right.
Hey, you know what? I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this anymore. Do I want to show up at the office every day? What does that look like? And then start putting that together. And then all of a sudden, you have multiple streams of income, and you got to think about the end result is multiple streams of income. And every shopping center you own, every warehouse you own, every investment you do is a stream of income. And then you have brokerage as a stream of income. And all of a sudden, man, that's freedom. Multiple streams of income is freedom.
Yeah.
When everything is based on what you make as a broker and that's it, you've got to show up.
Hmm.
And if there's anything that I hate more is having to show up to something all the time, because eventually I don't want to. And will I be able to walk away from it? And the beauty of brokerage is I like it, but I know I can walk away from it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I got a lot out of this today, Rob. But I feel like there's so much more. So I would love to continue the conversation in the future. Anything else before, something you want to cover before we go? Or
I'm sure there is, but it
Yeah.
would take it on a rabbit trail and add another 30 minutes. So
I love
I'm
it.
really honored that you even wanted to talk to me. And thank you for having me on your show, on your podcast. I wish you continued success.
Yeah, well, we'll keep rocking with it. Also, like before we go, can you tell people how to find you? I mean, obviously with the brokerage, investing, and with your coaching.
Yeah. So LinkedIn is where you see my ideas and see whatever posts I'm doing. You can reach me on LinkedIn, rpowell@resolutere.com. And I coach for Massimo Group. And if you're interested in coaching for commercial real estate brokerage, contact Massimo. And CRE Investor Coach, if you're interested in learning how to invest and want to surround yourself with people that are buying commercial real estate and putting those deals together and raising money, check out Brad Arns at CRE Investor Coach.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. I'm sure you got a lot out of this, just as I had. We'll have all that information in the description, and we look forward to have Rob back on the show again. So thank you, everybody. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Ray.
Thanks.